Hello there. It is 6:03 p.m. on Monday, May 4th, 2026, and I feel like I just did some kind of like translinguistic hostage negotiation in order to be out here right now. So thank you. Shout out to my parents, shout out to my mom, shout out to my dad, shout out to everybody. Shout out to my sister. I certainly am surprised at how long it's been since I've actually sat down to make a clip. My sister was in town for about, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 6 days, 5 nights, I think. And, when we have company like that, or we're like spending extra special time with each other as a family, like, i.e., if my sister's coming in from out of town, which is far away, I like to not continue to prioritize making podcasts. Making this one right now is actually case in point, because I just had to negotiate with my mom to make sure that it was okay that I could do this. And that I wasn't hurting anyone's feelings or being rude or anything like that. And again, not entirely convinced one way or the other, but I did get explicit permission. So there's nothing that says infantilization, like getting the go-ahead from your mommy. Shout out to my mom. My sister was here, and I was thinking a lot about making this clip while I was biking. I just got back from like a, 20-something mile ride. And it was fun. It's a bit of a practice for me now. When I go for bike rides, because of the way that I am doing my rides now, which are like typically, today was a little bit longer. Today was a little bit closer to 2 hours. It was windy and hilly. But in general, like, I bike somewhere between like 45 minutes and an hour every day. And during that time, I'm kind of like going over things that I think I might want to talk about. Because, the brain's filling with blood, and there's endorphins from the actual activity. I'm listening to music, which always makes me feel extra energized and creative and thoughtful about, whatever I'm thinking about. And, what else? I was thinking about how I enjoy spending time with my sister, and when she is around, I try not to be on my phone, like, as much as possible. I was thinking specifically on the ride, I was like, I don't want to paint too firm of a picture of my own level of self-discipline. I think that, like, I'm able to modulate things like phone usage and everything associated with that in terms of like my attention and my presence. I'm very aware of the irony that I'm sitting here talking on my phone while I'm actually not with my parents. And so I'm actually doing the opposite of what I'm talking about right now in this exact moment. But the thing about it is that I understand that there will be failures, because I'm not a perfect person. And also, now I have Hoobastank stuck in my head. I know that there will be times where I fail. Living up to my own standards right now is one of those times. But because of like a certain level of awareness of my ideal type of behavior, and a willingness to accept tiny victories as important milestones in that effort, like, I feel like you certainly will always have failures. But if you have awareness and even just a modicum of discipline, I think that you will eventually get to a point where the number of successes starts to rise in conjunction with the number of failures. Because, like, again, I don't think that it's possible to like have 100% focused attention every single day from the time you wake up until you go to sleep, focusing exactly on what you were hoping to focus on. I personally don't believe that's why focus or attention exists. I think that we've commodified it to make it seem like almost like a immaterial asset that's sort of like the precursor to something that could be made into a product that you could sell and make money from. That's kind of like the currency of thought that I feel like exists within the society that we live in, So I don't think that that's true. I think that again, Homo abstracticus as we are, like, we have taken the fact that we're conscious at all, and the way that our economy and society has kind of evolved over time has kind of painted a certain type of perception. It's kind of interesting what it's actually like living in society and being a part of culture. It's kind of like how AI chatbots, every single time you send something, I've talked about this before, but I'm seeing the connection now. Every time you send something in a text box to an AI chatbot, there's actually like a background prompt that is also included with your prompt. And it's like things that are saying like, be a helpful collaborator, be harmless, be, what's the other? Helpful, harmless, and wasn't it another H? Helpful, harmless, honest, maybe? I can't remember. But like being in culture, like when we're encountering our reality and we're like, decoding it, there's like all these like background prompts, that are running under our awareness level, which is interesting. Because again, attention is like the commodity of the era that we live in now. And, there's a concept of like negatively wasting time by being idle and having your attention stolen by things that don't benefit you, like social media and stuff like that. They feel like they do, but really it's just another form of like addiction. But I'll get into that later. In any case, my sister was here and I wanted to be as present as possible. And so one of the things that I did in order to make my behavior in line with that desire was to not make podcasts, because, again, having to figure out where I would fit in like a half hour or an hour on any given day would possibly compromise like some kind of organic experience I could have had with my sister. Shout out to you. And so I was kind of just building that into the plan. But yeah, it was a good time. Very relaxed. Went to a couple restaurants. Went and saw a very impressive like circus kind of thing. That it was a performance put on by a local high school. And if you have a time machine and are in the Rabun Gap area, I highly recommend going back in time to Friday, Saturday, or Sunday and going and seeing this show. It was very impressive, not just for like, not only impressive for the fact that it was high school kids doing it, but actually just like impressive on any scale, really. Like I would expect to see a performance like this, like at Atlantic Station or something like that, in Atlanta. Like it felt like a big production with people who knew what they were doing with quality materials, who like spared no expense. It was like expensive looking in every facet of the word. Pretty cool. So anyway, I enjoyed hanging out with my family and my sister. And what else, dude? I got self-conscious for a second. I have to think about what I'm actually trying to say. I feel like there was more on the whole attention thing, but maybe not. I did make some notes on my way back home. So let's see what they are. Well, not super impressive. Well, not unimpressive. I thought I had more notes. I don't. So I'm not actually ready to get to those yet. I don't think I'm warmed up. So I'll just talk about my day. And yeah, I guess beyond that too, I have a little bit of a hashtag life update. And so these are thoughts and feelings I've been having over the past 5 or so days since my sister was here. The product of conversations and nights and thinking and dreams and so on and so forth. So today was a good day. I think I woke up just about 8 o'clock, which that's the thing about, me being back off of trail life. It's unfortunate because I really enjoyed waking up earlier, but I find when I'm actually like at a place, when I'm indoors, I I just can't wake up early. Like, it just doesn't work for whatever reason. I could wake up almost at any time on the trail. It didn't really matter. If I needed to wake up at 5 a.m. some morning, I would do that. I could do that. I could wake up at 6. I could wake up at 7. It keeps going on ad infinitum, my dude. It just depended on what the day was going to call for. And, I never really slept any later than 7. Ooh, I don't know if that's true, but it was something like that. And yeah, so I woke up at 8-ish around here, and it was kind of just like, just jumped into things immediately. I'm trying to remember. Okay, well, I guess I should give my life update because that's the context that's necessary for this to even make sense. So, I've been thinking about what I want to do next, and, let me think about this. I have made several changes to what I want to do based on how thinking over the follow through for certain decisions make me feel in the theoretical abstract musings on them, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I've been kind of walking through, like, setting up, like, okay, what does success in San Francisco look like? Like, how do I achieve that? What would make me feel good? And it's like, okay, well, I certainly know that a big part of me going to San Francisco involves interacting with people. Like, I really feel like that's the key to any kind of success that I could possibly have. It will be 100% dependent on my ability to make meaningful relationships with other people. And so that's sort of like the undercurrent for the desire to go out there to begin with, right? And so I started to get like a little bit more nervous about the idea of going out there, mostly like losing a sense of confidence that I would be able to overcome the, it's not even risk really, like to overcome, well, I guess the variables of friction, maybe. Like, I feel like there's like just a big chance I could burn out really quickly from that pursuit. Like, I've tried to front load some of my concerns about like my living logistics and like how I would basically mediate any kind of anxieties about my car being left unattended for hours. And I don't know, I just feel like there's like a bunch of things, like little fantasies of like how things could go, which I understand is like not the most it's certainly not an objective measure of like trying to navigate uncertainty. Like, having negative fantasies isn't like necessarily something that is predictive of what will happen, but it is something that I can't really help doing either. It's just like, I know that there's this thing coming up in my life, and I want to be able to like approach it with a certain degree of like, forewarned is forearmed. So it's like, I do understand and recognize that there would be chaos as a necessary part of this pursuit and of this plan. And I think that I would be able to overcome that level of chaos successfully, but I don't have a lot of confidence that that is necessarily true. And now I just feel like I'm repeating myself. So I had gotten to a point where I was feeling a little unsettled about San Francisco, and I was like, well, there's no reason that I have to go straight to San Francisco. Like, there are other cities, talked with my family, shout out to my family, about other options. Like Austin was mentioned quite a few times, but for me, Austin is like, just the chances of that being too hot are too high. Like, I feel like I would be, if I tried to live out of my car during the summer in Austin, Texas, I feel like it would almost be as bad as how it felt to be on the road, Like, if the place where I'm sleeping is like 89 degrees at like 8 p.m., and it's not going to cool down until like 3 a.m. or something like that, and I have to sleep in there night after night. Now, granted, I understand that I am like electing to do this, so there's no reason I have to actually sleep in my car. Like, a more traditional approach could be to like rent out a long-term Airbnb, or try to make connections on Facebook Marketplace and get some like cheap sublet or something like that. Something non-committal in the same way, but also climate controlled. But in any case, I don't think that I want to be in that environment regardless, even if I was living inside of like an apartment or something like that, just because I still think it would be too hot. And so at a certain point, I kind of landed and felt good about going to Asheville first. So go to Trail Days in Damascus, Virginia in mid-May. And then from there, rather than driving straight to San Francisco, I would go to Asheville first because I feel more comfortable in that area just in general. Like in the past 5 years or so of my life, I've lived in Asheville for, something like 10 months or maybe even a year. And so I have a pretty good familiarity with the city. I have more people who I already have relationships with and friendships and those kinds of things in that area. And so like going back to it could be something that could be just as good possibly as San Francisco if I somehow navigated to something that I didn't expect but was hopeful for. And so I pivoted to that as my new plan. And then at some point, gosh, was it just yesterday? Man, I think it was. I think just yesterday, Sunday, the day that my sister was actually leaving, something kind of like fell into place with respect to just my general plans. And I was like, I could go back to Atlanta. And maybe this wasn't Sunday. Maybe this was Saturday. I don't remember. But it was very recently. And I have to say, like, when I kind of finally had my planchette of my Ouija board hit on that possibility, something did feel right about it. It was interesting because I've made some clips for myself just to talk things out and to also have a record. So, even though I wasn't making podcasts, that doesn't mean I wasn't recording. The podcasts are just more of a commitment. I can record something just inconsequential at any time, Podcast, I mean, this takes work. JK. But, it was interesting because I felt good about the Atlanta idea. And even though I felt good about it, like it felt like something that could definitely be done, there was a part of me that felt like I was taking the easy way out and kind of being lazy by choosing something that was such a known quantity, And I talked to myself about that a little bit and also put it into Notebook LM. And it was interesting because if you recall the writing that my ex-girlfriend wrote about me that I read, there were some elements of it where like I taught her about like some form of ultimate agency based on taking responsibility for your actions and things like that. And that I had also, it sounds so funny, so clinical. I had accused her of being in love with suffering and confusing it with honor. And this episode of Notebook LM actually accused me of doing that, which I think is actually very true and was very interesting and kind of put Joanna is her name, put Joanna's writing kind of in a sharper relief for me because I was like, so it really, like, I was just at a part in my life where maybe I was more put together in that respect of like agency versus what is the opposite of agency? I guess disempowerment. I have recently felt like more disempowered because of my loss of confidence in like going out to San Francisco. And so choosing something that seems easier, it kind of feels like walking my bike up a hill, it's like kind of like cheating a little bit because it's just like, well, I mean, if you're not working hard, then you're not working correctly or you're missing out on some kind of like more meaningful experience. It's as Notebook LM says, it's the hustle culture mentality that I was accusing Joanna of, and then here I am actually displaying it myself, which kind of put me also into an even deeper reflective spiral, because I was like thinking about her writing about me, and I was like, the thought that I've had most recently was like, here's a person who saw like whatever is the most intimate side of me. Like, this person saw that, and right or wrong, I think that her description of me is probably at least like on par with what like anyone on average might say about me, which is interesting, because it's like my whole sense about like the writing itself, which I don't think was created whatsoever to like challenge or hurt me at all. Like, but like describing me as like having a robotic interiority, and all these other kind of things, like having no God other than sweat and nicotine. Very poetic. Like my thought about that is like, first of all, and this is one of the things that I have come to understand about myself recently, despite how analytical or philosophical I might try to be about my approach to understanding the world around me, at the end of the day, I am still a human, and just like every other human that I might critique or put under the microscope, I have like I have an emotional experience of life, and I have tried really hard in my life to be able to regulate my emotions in a way that I feel like is healthy. And there is a contradiction here that I hope to unpack as long as I can remember it. I think I started really trying to like get a handle of my emotional experience when I was like, probably when I was like 15, but definitely when I was in college and was interacting with people in a much more intimate and like adult way. Like, without having parents around you, you get to choose what you do. You get to choose who you be around. You get to choose like, your social life basically. And I was really into Taoism at the time. And I think that an interesting thing about Eastern philosophy in general, or at least as far as I remember, which could be apocryphal or just otherwise inaccurate, but they say that like, you're supposed to follow Confucianism for the parts of your life where you're like the most productive, like from, I don't know, your 20s until your 60s or something like that. And then when you turn 60-ish, this is all just rough numbers, you would then turn to Taoism for sort of like your philosophy for how to deal with like the later stages of life. And I started with Taoism. I don't know why Confucianism. I guess it's because the Tao Te Ching is just it's such an approachable book. I don't know. I'm very unread when it comes to Eastern philosophy, and I don't actually know if there is like a definitive writing about Confucianism that could be something that would be comparable to like the standalone volume that is the Tao Te Ching, But in any case, like my point is that I think that I think I trained myself to regulate my emotions through a Taoistic lens, or at least my understanding as an 18-year-old of Taoism, self-guided, which is always problematic, because then you fill whatever gaps in your knowledge there are, you fill them with your own intuition. So, your mileage will vary. But like, what am I talking about? Like the robotic interiority. So I think that like part of my structure and understanding of like my emotional life is certainly, it's not to, I don't know, it's like an extra layer on top of what your natural baseline instincts for an emotional reaction would be. Just like if you're really in your feelings and you're really like overtaken by the way that you feel, like whatever comes after that, if you have no buffer against your emotional interior and the exterior that you might project it onto. Like, I tried to create a dam or some sort of a wall between those two things so that I could have more time to make sure that, like, the way that I was feeling was worth expressing in that immediate way. I think that feelings are always worth expressing and that they are all valid, but the way that they can be expressed is sort of like a skill that needs to be practiced if you're trying to, more oftentimes than not, express your emotions in a way that doesn't hurt other people in the process of dealing with them, right? And so, yeah, it's just interesting because I think that a lot of the women in my life who have spent like a lot of time with me and experienced me from a close distance, I think that they would probably agree more or less with the way that Joanna described me. And so now I'm at this part of my life where I'm thinking like part of emotional regulation in order to not appear like a robot is to encourage more moments of vulnerability and to like let that speak. If I feel like I already have a pretty good handle on like controlling my anger, my sadness, and the things that can leak out of me and infect other people in a negative way, then the positive parts of emotional experience can be broadcasted more without consequence or with more volume, maybe. I don't know. I think that there's like there's just I feel like I've gone through a little bit of a calibration because I'm like, okay, like I don't feel like I am likely to be a vastly different type of human being emotionally as compared to others. I feel like the likelihood of that is really low just because of statistics, you know? And so I generally already assume that most people have a very similar life experience. And I don't mean like an internal life experience that's somewhat similar to mine. I would assume that I'm on like somewhere of the middle of the bell curve. I don't think I'm on either extreme of like complete solitude or complete like I don't know exteriorization of all emotions, like basically just being a toddler, you know. So yeah, that has been interesting. That was one of my thoughts on my bike ride. I made a note. Yeah. And I've talked about it now, so that's great. Let's see. Dang. Yeah, I don't know. I think I do have other notes, but these are things that I can like return to at any time. So I feel like 30 minutes is like a reasonable amount of time for me to have spent talking to myself about myself. And still be able to go inside with a minimum of damage done. So I think I will leave it there for now and return to other matters at a later date. But yeah, suffice it to say, today was a good day. I know I didn't talk much about what happened after my #life updates, but it's kind of irrelevant. It was very productive. It was very busy, and it was the kind of day that makes me feel like I don't know. I like to be a little bit. I don't like to be behind schedule. I like to be like right on schedule. Like I like to have just enough things to do so that like I can transition from like one task to the next. Sometimes surprise tasks are great. Today had quite a few surprise tasks that kind of just showed up, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do my best to like work my way through this and figure something out because like this is on my plate now, and I've taken ownership of it. But yeah, it was a good day, and I look forward to a good day tomorrow. I don't have anything planned that I know of, but I'm sure things will come up, and I'm sure I'll have things to say. And so for now, I suppose I'll leave it there with a doubly appreciative and sincere Shout out to my parents. Love you. Bye.